The sky cracked open like glass. Blue fire rained from the clouds, and the ground shook under the weight of falling metal giants. It had started without warning. One moment, the city hummed with daily life. The next, screams echoed through every corner. Commander Ryan had seen many battles, but this was different. This was not war, it was slaughter. Alien warships tore through buildings. Their drones hunted survivors like prey. The enemy was unknown, fast and cruel. No one knew why. They attacked. They didn't ask for peace. They just came and destroyed. Ryan's unit was wiped out in the first hour. He was lucky to survive, crawling through broken stone and burning machines. His left leg was bleeding, but he didn't stop. His cums were dead, his weapon half melted. He didn't even know if Earth still had a government. He found shelter in an old cargo station, half buried under debris. The lights were out. The walls creaked with cold. Snow had started to fall outside, but inside was quiet. He sat by a broken window, listening to the distant sounds of explosions. Then came the noise that changed everything. A knock. It was soft, almost like a mistake. Just once. Then silence. He waited, holding his breath. Another knock. This time, firmer, slow, almost polite. He limped to the steel door, gripping a sharp metal rod he had picked up as a weapon. The door creaked open. Two figures stood in the snow. A tall woman and a tiny child. At first, Ryan thought they were human. But the woman's skin shimmered faintly blue in the dim light. Her eyes were larger than normal, glowing faintly like moonlight. Her hair was silver, falling over her shoulders like frost. She held the child's hand tightly. The child had a teddy bear. It was old and torn. Her eyes were wide with fear. Ryan didn't speak. He didn't lower his weapon. The woman stepped forward slowly. She raised her free hand not to attack, but to show peace. "I am not enemy," she said softly. Her voice was calm, tired, and honest. "Please, she's cold. We don't want trouble, just a place to stay." He looked at them. Both were soaked, shaking. The child's lips were turning blue. Ryan knew the protocol. Aliens were to be avoided or captured. No one could be trusted after what happened. But something about her made him hesitate. She wasn't armed. She wasn't a soldier. Before he could speak, she lowered her eyes. "If I warm your bed, will you let us stay?" Ryan blinked, surprised. "I mean," she added quickly, embarrassed. "You don't need to share. I only meant ... warmth. It's cold." "She's very cold. We don't want to die." There was silence. Snow blew in the wind outside. Ryan finally stepped back. He motioned inside with his hand. "Come in." The woman gave a small bow. Her knees nearly gave out from weakness. She helped the child through the door, brushing snow off her little head. They sat on a corner of the metal bed, not saying a word. Ryan found an old blanket and threw it over them. The woman whispered thanks. He sat across the room, still gripping the metal rod. He didn't sleep. He just watched them. The girl slowly curled up beside her mother, hugging the teddy bear close. The woman sat stiffly, arms wrapped around the child, eyes closed but not sleeping. For the first time in days there was no sound of gunfire. Only the wind outside. Ryan didn't understand what just happened. All he knew was this: the war had taken everything from him. But tonight, in the silence, something strange had entered his shelter. Something soft. Something warm. Something alien, and he wasn't sure if it was danger or the beginning of something else. The morning was still and gray. Cold light peeked through the cracked window, painting frost on the metal walls. Ryan stretched his sore muscles and looked toward the bed. The alien woman was still awake. Her eyes were open, watching him carefully. She hadn't moved all night, still holding the small child close under the rough blanket. The girl was finally sleeping peacefully, her small fingers wrapped tightly around the teddy bear. Rayan rubbed his tired eyes. Did you sleep at all? The woman shook her head. I couldn't. Not yet. I needed to be sure you wouldn't change your mind. Rayan stood slowly and grabbed a dented can from a corner. I have food. It's not much. The woman nodded politely. Thank you. We're grateful. He warmed the can over a tiny fire he had built using old wiring and scrap. The smell of heated soup filled the room, weak but comforting. He handed the woman half. She didn't eat first. She fed the child, gently, carefully. The girl ate without saying a word, then rested her head on her mother's lap. Rayan sat back, watching them. You got a name? The woman hesitated. My name is Kayla. My daughter's name is Alari. He nodded. I'm Rayan. You're not like the ones attacking us. Kayla looked down. No, my kind. We were caught in the middle. We're not part of the war. We ran when the sky burned. Most of my people didn't make it. Rayan leaned against the wall, arms crossed. You don't look like a fighter. I was not, she said quietly. I was a nurse, a caretaker. But everything changed. She looked at her hands, elegant, glowing slightly, but tired. Now I hide, now I beg. Rayan didn't reply. He stared out the window at the white world beyond. This station's not safe. Sooner or later, the machines will sweep this area, or we're scouts. Kayla tilted her head. Then why did you let us stay? I don't know, he said. Maybe I was tired of watching things die. They sat in silence for a moment. The child Alari curled up tighter under the blanket, finally letting out a soft breath. Rayan noticed her small toes were still red from the cold. He moved to a locker nearby and pulled out a thick old coat. Here, take this for her. Kayla looked at it, surprised. That's yours. She needs it more, Rayan said simply. She took it carefully like it was gold and wrapped Alari gently in the coat. Thank you, truly. Rayan studied her face again. Her features were alien, yes, softly glowing veins under her skin. Strange eyes with no whites, but she looked more human in that moment than anything else he had seen since the war began. Where will you go after this? He asked. Kayla looked at the child. I don't know, maybe nowhere. Maybe here, if you allow it. Rayan stared at the cold floor. I'm not good company. Kayla gave a soft smile. You gave us warmth. That is more than most would. Outside, snow began falling harder. The wind howled through the cracks. Inside, for the first time in days, it felt a little less lonely. Kayla leaned back against the wall, her eyes heavy. Rayan looked over at her. Get some sleep. I'll keep watch. She nodded slowly and finally let herself rest, her arms still, holding the child close. As Rayan sat alone, holding his crude weapon, listening to the storm outside, he began to wonder something he hadn't thought in a long time. What if he didn't have to be alone anymore? What if this strange woman and her daughter weren't just guests? What if they were the reason he survived in the first place? Rayan was awakened by a sound he hadn't heard in a long time. Laughter. It was soft and high-pitched. He opened his eyes and saw little Alari trying to chase a floating light bug that had slipped in through the broken window. Her small feet ran across the metal floor, now covered with an old blanket to keep her warm. She still wore his coat, now too big for her, the sleeves dragging along the ground. Her cheeks were no longer pale. Kayla sat nearby, watching her with a peaceful smile. She looked less guarded today, her hair gently falling over her shoulders. As she tied together some torn cloth she had found to use as a pillow, Rayan stood and stretched. Did she sleep well? Kayla nodded. Better than she has in weeks. That's good, he said, then checked the small fire he'd kept alive. He had one more ration can left. Not much, but enough for now. We'll need food soon. He added, I can help, Kayla said softly. I can move quietly. I used to collect herbs and roots. If your planet has any like ours, I'll know what's safe. You sure? I won't risk her life, she replied. I'll be careful. Ryan looked at her again. Even with her strange features, there was something calm about her presence. She didn't complain. She didn't panic. She simply did what needed to be done. Later that day, Kayla wrapped herself in a tarp and slipped out quietly, while Ilari stayed behind, asleep again. Ryan sat near her, watching over the little girl. He was nervous. What if Kayla never came back? But after an hour, the door creaked. Kayla stepped in, her arms holding a small pile of strange roots, berries, and even a few wriggling creatures. Ryan's eyes widened. You gathered all that? She gave a tired smile. Not as fast as I used to, but yes. He checked the food carefully. It smelled odd, but Kayla explained what was safe and how to cook it. Together, they prepared a simple stew over the fire. That night, as the three of them sat near the warmth, Ilari sat in Ryan's lap, holding her teddy bear. She looked up at him with wide eyes. You smell like smoke, she said. He chuckled. Better than blood. Kayla gave him a surprised look, then smiled slightly. Your humor is sharp. It's all I've got left. There was a pause. The room was quiet again, but the silence felt different now. War still raged beyond the mountains, but here, in this small space, there was calm. Kayla placed her hand on her daughter's head and looked toward Ryan. You saved us. He shook his head. I just opened the door. No, she said. You gave more than shelter. You gave dignity. You let us feel human again, even though we're not. You're more human than most people I knew before this mess. He replied. Kayla looked down. I don't want to be a burden. If you tell us to leave, we will. But I would like to stay. Just a little longer. Ryan looked at her, then at Ilari, now falling asleep again in his lap. You're not a burden, he said. You're the only reason this place doesn't feel like a grave anymore. Kayla looked at him with quiet surprise. Stay, he added. As long as you need, she nodded slowly. Thank you, Ryan, truly. He stared into the fire for a while, thinking. This wasn't what he expected. He had planned to die here alone, forgotten, angry, but now he was warming stew beside a glowing alien woman and a child who called him funny. Maybe life was still broken. Maybe the war hadn't ended. But something inside him had changed, and that was enough for now. Ryan woke up to soft humming. The sound was coming from Kayla. She was kneeling beside the fire, carefully grinding some dried roots with a piece of broken metal. Her voice was low, melodic, and unfamiliar but peaceful. Ilari was still asleep, her arms wrapped around the teddy bear, and her small head resting on Ryan's coat. Ryan sat up slowly, watching Kayla. Her eyes were focused, her hands gentle. You sing, he said. Kayla looked up, startled at first, then nodded. It helps keep my thoughts calm. I used to sing in the medical shelter, for children. Ryan stood and stretched. Can't remember the last time I heard anything that soft. War turned everything into noise. Kayla didn't respond. She kept working, adding powdered root to a bowl of melted snow. I'm making healing salve, she said after a moment. Your leg still hurts, doesn't it? Ryan looked down at his bandaged leg. Not much. I've had worse. You limp when you think I'm not watching, she replied gently. He smirked. Not used to someone noticing. Kayla handed him the small bowl. The liquid inside was green and smelled strange. But when she touched his leg and removed the old wrapping, her fingers were light, like feathers. She cleaned the wound carefully, applied the salve, then covered it again. It stung at first, but then the pain faded. I didn't expect this, Ryan said, voice quieter now. Any of this. I thought I was just waiting to die here. Kayla looked at him. We thought we would die out there. We had nowhere to go, no one to trust. I knocked on doors. No one opened until you. He didn't know what to say. Her voice wasn't bitter, just tired. Ilari stirred and sat up. Her small eyes blinked sleepily. She looked around, saw Ryan, and smiled. "Is there food?" Kayla smiled and handed her a small warm piece of root. "Bread." The girl munched happily, then looked at Ryan. "You didn't smile yesterday. You're smiling today." Ryan raised an eyebrow. "I am?" She nodded proudly. "Yes." He laughed once. Just once. But it was real. They spent the day quietly. Kayla helped clean part of the room, arranging supplies, folding the few clothes they had, and even sewing the torn blanket using thread pulled from an old uniform. Ilari drew strange shapes on the dusty floor with her finger, sometimes explaining them to Ryan in broken English and her native tongue. That evening, Kayla made soup again. This time, she added small spice-like seeds she had gathered. The smell filled the room with warmth. After dinner, Ryan sat near the fire while Ilari fell asleep beside her mother. Kayla covered her gently and then moved to sit near Ryan. "You don't ask questions," she said softly. "What kind? Where we came from? What species I am? Why we were left behind?" Ryan shrugged. "I figured if you wanted to tell me, you would." Kayla looked into the fire. "We were not warriors. My people were peaceful. We offered care to refugees, human and alien. But when the sky burned, even kindness was punished." She paused. "They said we were too soft to survive. Maybe they were right." Ryan shook his head. "You're still alive. That's not weakness." She looked at him, eyes glowing faintly in the firelight. "You're the first human I've seen who didn't look at me like a threat or a tool." "I don't see a threat," he said. "I see someone doing what she can to stay alive and protect her kid." Kayla smiled, gently, almost sadly. "You're kind, Ryan." He looked at her. "I'm not. I just forgot how to be cruel." There was a long pause between them. Not uncomfortable, just quiet. Kayla shifted closer just slightly. "Then maybe it's good we found you." Ryan didn't move away. Outside, the storm had passed. Stars blinked in the black sky above the broken roof. Inside, 3 souls rested in a warmth that didn't come from fire alone. Ryan noticed it the moment he opened his eyes. The fire had gone out completely. The air was freezing. But that wasn't what woke him. It was the silence. No footsteps. No soft hum from Kayla. No sleepy murmurs from Ilari. He sat up quickly. The bed was empty. The blanket was gone. His coat too. His heart jumped in his chest. He stood fast, ignoring the ache in his healing leg, and limped toward the metal door. It was slightly open. Snow had blown inside. "Kayla?" he called. "Ilari?" No answer. He stepped out, the cold biting into his skin. His eyes scanned the white landscape. Then, just a few meters away, he saw movement. Kayla was on her knees. Hands raised. 2 armed drones hovered in front of her. Ilari stood behind her, frozen with fear. "Stand down." Ryan shouted, rushing toward them. The drones turned toward him, mechanical eyes glowing red. Civilian detected. Unregistered life form confirmed. Protocol: terminate or capture. Kayla shouted something in her language, spreading her arms as if to shield Ilari. Ryan raised both hands and stepped between them. "Stop! She's not the enemy." The drones hovered closer. "You are interfering with military action. I don't care." He snapped. "I'm the only registered survivor. In this area, this shelter is mine. I gave them protection. They're under my care." The machines paused for a moment. Then one of them scanned Ryan's ID chip. The red light blinked yellow. Human identification confirmed. Shelter status: temporary command fallback. Non-hostile claim recognized. The other drone clicked. Life forms may remain under human authority. Report to command requested. With a low whine, the drones rose into the air and flew off toward the clouds. Ryan stood still, breathing hard. Snow fell around them like feathers. Kayla looked up at him. "You stepped in front of them." He turned and faced her. "I told you. You're not a threat. You're not my enemy." Ilari ran forward and hugged his leg tightly. "I was scared." Rin bent down and lifted her gently. "It's okay. They're gone now." They returned inside. Rian rebuilt the fire, his hands shaking from the cold and anger. Kayla sat beside him, pulling Ilari close again. "You didn't have to protect us like that. You could have stayed silent. Let them take us." "I'm not that man," he said firmly. "Not anymore." Kayla was quiet for a long moment. "I came out only to gather snow for water. I didn't think they would find us so soon." "They'll come back," Ryan said. "Or worse. If command knows we're here, someone will try to take you." She nodded slowly. "We've been taken before. I won't let that happen again." Kayla looked at him with soft, glowing eyes. "You say that as if we matter to you." Ryan looked away. "You do." She smiled genuinely. Her face looked lighter, as if a wall inside her had fallen away. "You remind me of someone I knew," she said quietly. "He was brave. And broken. Like you." Ryan stirred the fire. "What happened to him?" "He died protecting others," she replied. "But I never forgot his kindness." There was a pause. Then she added, "I never thought I'd meet someone like him again." Ilari, now warm and safe again, looked up from her mother's arms. "Can we stay with you forever?" Ryan hesitated, then nodded. "If you want to." Kayla touched his hand gently. "Then maybe this cold world won't feel so cold anymore." For the first time they all sat close together. Not out of fear, but something else. Connection. As silent. Promise that, no matter what came next, they wouldn't face it alone. Asterisk. The days grew longer and colder. Snow piled against the station's outer walls. The sky stayed gray, and the air carried the bitter scent of war. But inside the small shelter, something had changed. It no longer felt like a bunker. It felt like a home. Kayla had turned one corner into a resting place for Ilari, using folded cloth, melted snow, and broken ship parts to build a soft little nest. Rian helped reinforce the windows with scrap metal and cloth to keep the wind out. The fire burned longer now, fueled by old crates and wires he collected on short trips outside. Every evening, they shared whatever food they had. They cooked together. They spoke in slow, quiet words. Sometimes, Ilari asked questions no one could answer. Will the sky be blue again? Will the bad robots come back? Rian always answered the same way. Not while I'm here. One evening, as they sat around the fire, Kayla took out a small stone from her pocket. It was smooth, glowing faintly, and etched with alien symbols. She held it carefully, like it was alive. "This is all I have left of my people," she said. "This was our promise stone. It holds memories, songs, names, and family lines. I thought it would break when our city fell." She offered it to Ryan. He stared at it, unsure. "It belongs to you," she said. "You are part of our story now." He held the stone gently. It was warm to the touch. "I don't know what to say." "You already said it," she replied. "The night you opened that door." Suddenly, a sharp buzzing filled the air. Ryan grabbed his weapon and rushed to the door. A light flickered in the sky, small, fast and red. A recon drone. "They found us again," he said. Kayla stood quickly, pulling Ilari behind her. "We can't run far, not in the snow." Ryan knew she was right. They had no transport. Shelter nearby. No allies. He looked around, breathing hard. Then his eyes fell on the old communications panel in the corner. It had never worked, but maybe. He rushed to it and began tearing wires. "I'm going to overload the signal booster. It'll burn out the drone's sensors, but it'll also burn this place." Kayla stepped forward. "You'll freeze outside. So will we." I'm not letting them take you, he said firmly. Not now. Kayla reached out and grabbed his hand. Then let us do it together. It worked fast. Ryan connected exposed wires and rerouted power from a backup cell. Kayla handed him tools without asking. Their movements were perfect like they had always done this. The drone hovered lower, scanning the building. Ryan shouted, "Now!" He hit the breaker. The panel exploded with light. A shockwave blasted out, shaking the floor. The drone sparked in midair, lost control, and crashed into the snow with a hiss. Silence returned. Smoke filled the room. The fire had gone out. Sparks danced in the corner, and the warmth was fading fast. Ryan pulled Ilari close and wrapped her in his arms. Kayla leaned into him. Her head rested against his shoulder. "We might freeze tonight," he whispered. Kayla nodded. "But we're not alone." Ryan looked down at Ilari's sleeping face. Then at Kayla's soft eyes, now tired but at peace. "No," he said, "we're not." Morning came slower than usual. But with it came sunlight, weak but golden, pushing through the snow-covered windows. And then, something unexpected. A soft voice on the emergency radio, crackling through the static. "Survivors detected. Rescue en route. Please activate beacon." Kayla stared at Ryan. "You didn't tell me the radio could send signals." "I didn't know it could," he said with a smile. She laughed quietly, tears in her eyes, for the first time in what felt like forever. They were no longer running. They were being found, chosen, saved. Together. Night had changed everything. Not because of fire, not because of war, but because one man made a choice. He opened a door and never let it close again.